Welcome to the channel, Wanderers of Arda and Lore Seekers of the West. Today we delve beyond the veil of myth and legend, into a mystery that even the wise might ponder in the silence of elven halls. Did the Silmarils secretly influence the fate of the One Ring? This is not merely a tale of jewels and dominion, but a whisper carried through the ages. A thread binding Feanor's fiery creation to Sauron's fell design. What if the doom of the Ring-bearer was scribed long before the fires of Mount Doom ever kindled? In the brilliance of the Silmarils themselves, let us walk this shadowed path together. The Silmarils, as recorded in the Silmarillion, were fashioned by Feanor in the ancient light of the Two Trees before their destruction in Yate 1495 of the Years of the Trees, a time predating the First Age by mere moments. These gems, radiant with the mingled light of Telperion and Laurelin, held within them the unmarred memory of a world before evil's dominion. Yet their purity became the seed of ruin for Melkor, later named Morgoth, coveted them, and his theft ignited the War of the Jewels. What is essential to understand here is that the Silmarils were not merely beautiful, they were hallowed. Vada herself sanctified them, so that no unclean hand could touch them without enduring torment. From this very sanctification, a paradox is born. How could something so pure yield such, and might their legacy cast a longer shadow, even into the Third Age? Now, turn to the Rings of Power, crafted in a region between 1500 and 1600 of the Second Age. Celebrimbor, a scion of Feanor, was their chief artisan. And here lies a shimmering line of connection. Not only was Celebrimbor descended from the very mind that wrought the Silmarils, but his desire to preserve beauty, to arrest the fading of Middle-earth, echoes Feanor's own rebellion against loss and decay. As stated in the Silmarillion, the heart of Feanor was ever drawn to things that endure. This very longing, transformed, twisted, and tempered by time, seeded the purpose behind the rings. And thus, it is not fanciful to suggest that the One Ring, though forged by Sauron in SS 1600, arose from a lineage of desire first kindled in Valinor. But could the Silmarils themselves, or the spiritual residue they left behind, have shaped more than just the philosophy of the elven smiths? Could they have exerted a metaphysical influence, an echo across the ages? Consider this. In Morgoth's Ring, Volume 10 of the History of Middle-earth, Tolkien explores the concept of Morgoth's dispersion, the idea that Morgoth poured so much of his malice into Arda itself that even his defeat did not cleanse the world of his corruption. Might the Silmarils, as repositories of sacred light, have exerted a counterforce? Or worse, having passed through so much grief and defilement, did they become silent catalysts of doom? This is not idle speculation. The fates of the Silmarils, one in the earth, one in the sea, and one in the sky with Eärendil, are elemental, vast, and cosmic. Their presence spans the very bounds of Arda. When Frodo sees the star of Eärendil shining in the sky during his darkest hour in Shelob's lair, 1330-19, he draws hope not from the ring, but from that Silmaril aloft. The light of the Fial of Galadriel, gifted in TT 3018, is itself described as caught from the stars of Elbereth. But the star it echoes most closely is Eärendil, who bears a Silmaril upon his brow. It is that light, not the rings, but the Silmarils, that wounds Shelob and preserves the quest. So then we ask, did the Silmarils, though sundered from Middle-earth, continue to guide its fate? Were they in their distant thrones silent witnesses, and perhaps unconscious shapers, of the final war against Sauron? The ring was made to dominate wills. The Silmarils burn those unworthy. The ring offers deceitful preservation. The Silmarils hold a truth that cannot be borne by the impure. One whispers in shadow, the other blazes in song. Yet both are bound by desire, and desire, in Tolkien's Legendarium, is the flame that kindles both creation and ruin. To better understand this unseen connection, we must explore the fates of those who bore the Silmarils, and what those legacies reveal. Maedhros cast himself into a fiery chasm, unable to bear the agony of possessing a Silmaril with unclean hands in 590 of the First Age. Maglor cast his into the sea and wandered in exile, singing songs of grief along forgotten shores, and Beren, long before them, lost his hand to Karkaroth when daring to claim a Silmaril from Morgoth's crown. Each encounter with these jewels evokes either ruin or transfiguration. They do not corrupt, as the ring does, they judge. And yet, both artifacts demand a moral reckoning. The ring's influence is obvious, corrupting Gollum, twisting Boromir, even testing Gandalf and Galadriel. But the Silmarils, in their terrible beauty, inspire obsession, jealousy, and fratricide. See the kinslayings at Alcalond in Yai-Tu 1495, or the tragedy of Doriath in Fa 509. One might argue the ring's power is overt and externalized, while the Silmarils awaken a more ancient and internal longing. Something deeper, perhaps, more perilous, because it wears the guise of light. Consider further the tragic irony. Sauron, in forging the One Ring, desired to control the other rings, 3 of which were borne by elves whose heritage touched the light of Valinor. Galadriel bore Nenya, Elrond held Vilya, and Círdan, later Gandalf, wielded Nenya. These rings were made by Celebrimbor of Feanor's line, but they were not touched by Sauron. They preserved lands of beauty, Lothlorien, Rivendell, and even the Grey Havens, echoes of the lost days of the Two Trees. And what are the Silmarils, if not the last fragments of that light? In that sense, Sauron's very domination was challenged by remnants of a power he could never access. He could twist the making of rings, but he could not touch the Silmarils, not in the First Age, nor by proxy in the Third. His One Ring may have ruled, but it never shone with light untainted. It mimicked the majesty of the Silmarils, just as Melkor once mimicked Eru's creative power in the Ain Lindel, yet in both cases the shadow could not match the song. Let us now reflect on the One Ring's ultimate fate. It is cast into the fires of Orodruin in March of 3019 of the Third Age, consumed by the very forge that gave it birth. But contrast this with the fates of the Silmarils. They endure. The sea, the earth, and the sky hold them. They cannot be retrieved. Their stories, like the rings, are closed, but not destroyed. The ring's end was final, for its power was artificial and parasitic. The Silmarils, however, are woven into Arda's very fabric, one with the song of creation. This may be why they do not pass into oblivion. They remain, burning, as reminders of Arda unmarred, and the cost of that which was lost. In this light, we must ask again, did the Silmarils influence the fate of the One Ring? Not directly, perhaps, not through touch or will, but in spirit. They served as an ancient axis around which the great themes of Middle-earth turned. Purity and pride, beauty and doom, desire and defiance. The ring was a shadow of all these. The Silmarils, their source. In the Ainulin Dale, the music of the Ainur is revealed as the original blueprint of Arda, composed before time began. Eru Ilúvatar wove themes of harmony and dissonance, and through it, the destinies of elves, men, and even Morgoth were shaped. Within that great symphony, the Silmarils and the One Ring are like recurring motifs, echoing through different movements of the same divine song. It is not just that they resemble each other, it is that they must. When Frodo and Sam traverse Mordor's ash-choked wastes in 3019 of the Third Age, Frodo speaks not merely as a hobbit, but as one caught up in a fate much older than himself. As he says in The Return of the King, "I am naked in the dark, Sam, and there is no veil between me and the wheel of fire." In this moment, Frodo does not only confront Sauron's ring, he confronts the doom of Mandos, the same implacable current that swept Feanor and his sons into madness. The One Ring is not simply a creation of Sauron's cunning. It is a node in that deeper pattern, a manifestation of the world's long burden of desire, will, and power. And it is no accident that Frodo is guided at his darkest hour by the light of a Silmaril. The phial of Galadriel, infused with the light of Eärendil's star, reaches beyond history. Eärendil himself, half-elven and doomed to the skies since 532 of the First Age, pleads with the Valar for the salvation of both elves and men. His Silmaril, raised above the darkness of Arda, becomes a beacon not only for sailors, but for the soul. When Frodo grips the Faiol in Shelob's lair, he is wielding more than light. He is drawing upon a cosmic authority that long predates the rings. He invokes the name of Elbereth, and Shelob recoils, not just from brightness, but from the memory of that ancient light, which Morgoth once sought and defiled. Galadriel's role, too, must be re-examined. A kinswoman of Feanor and herself an exile from Valinor, she refuses the One Ring despite its offering of dominion. She understands more deeply than any the temptation of glory under the guise of good. Her words, "I pass the test. I will diminish and go into the west and remain Galadriel. Where he chose pride, she chooses renunciation. Where he defied the Valar, she returns to them in humility." This pivot from possession to relinquishment is the hinge upon which the tale turns. Frodo too fails at the end. He claims the ring upon Mount Doom, but it is not his will that saves the world, it is Gollum's fall, the irony of pity, and perhaps the hidden hand of providence. For in Tolkien's Legendarium, as he wrote in his letters, a divine eucatastrophe operates. Even in the bleakest tale, this is not Deus ex machina, it is the echo of Eru's voice in the music, a thread that began before the Silmarils were ever wrought. So then, were the Silmarils and the One Ring alike by chance or by design? Perhaps the deeper truth is this: the ring was never meant to succeed. For though the Silmarils burned those who tried to wield them unworthily, they preserved the sacred light. The ring, a parody of that light, burned its bearers with emptiness, and in the end, only through pity, humility, and mercy, virtues long sung of in the music, was it undone. Let us now gaze beyond the end of the Third Age, beyond the Tower of Barad-dûr fallen and the ring consumed in Orodruin's fire. While the world sighs in relief, the Silmarils remain untouched by this destruction. And though they no longer shape the hands of kings or the doom of warriors directly, they do not pass into legend. They remain active, eternal presences within the fabric of Arda, one in the sea, one in the earth, one in the sky. And in this triune destiny lies the deeper mystery. Eärendil Silmaril, sailing the heavens since 532 of the First Age, becomes more than a star. It becomes a celestial symbol of hope, visible in the night sky to elves and men alike. This was the light Frodo beheld in Shelob's lair, and again on the slopes of Mount Doom. It is a visible echo of Arda unmarred, a world before the taint of Melkor. The mere presence of that light in the sky acts as a metaphysical bulwark against shadow. It is not weapon nor ward, but a promise that even in the long defeat, some fragment of beauty endures. The second Silmaril, swallowed into the depths of the sea by Maglor, may seem lost, but Tolkien rarely allowed anything so potent to fade without reason. In the War of the Jewels, there are hints in the grey annals that the sea itself becomes a liminal space, a boundary between worlds. Ulmo, the Valar of Waters, remained always the most involved of the Valar in Middle-earth, even after the withdrawal of the powers. It is not hard to imagine that the Silmaril beneath the waves continues to radiate its holy light, untouched by time, glimpsed perhaps in visions or dreams by elves sailing west. A beacon not seen, but felt. The final Silmaril, buried deep in the earth along with Maedhros, is perhaps the most poignant. For here lies the grief of Feanor's line, entombed in the bones of the world. Yet it is also a seed. As the earth turns and seasons pass, the Silmaril rests beneath mountain and root, a sleeping gem in the secret heart of the world. In Morgoth's Ring, Tolkien speaks of Arda marred and the hope of Arda healed, an eschatological vision in which all that was broken shall be made new. In that future, might the Silmarils rise again? Indeed, in the final vision granted to Andreth by Finrod in the Athrobeth, Finrod ar Andreth, recorded in Morgoth's Ring, there is a prophecy not spoken but felt, that Eru himself would one day enter into the world to heal it, The Silmarils, as bearers of light unmarred by Morgoth's touch, may be part of that restoration. If so, then their influence did not end with the rings or the fall of Sauron. It waits, quiet, watching, radiant beneath the veils of the world. This cosmic resonance is what sets the Silmarils apart from all other artifacts in Tolkien's legendarium. They were not created by the Valar, but neither were they wholly of Ardamard. They are glimpses of what was before, and what may yet be again. The ring's tale ends in destruction, but the Silmarils endure as harbingers of a deeper fate. Not doom, but redemption. And so, while the One Ring bound the wills of others, the Silmarils still burned with the will of Ilúvatar himself, like starlight woven into stone. Their light did not war against the ring with sword or fire, but with endurance. They offered a vision of a world the ring could never touch. A world without domination, without shadow. A world that remembers the trees. So what, in the end, do we find when we trace the arc from the blazing light of the Silmarils to the fire-ringed doom of the One? A tale not of coincidence, but of contrast, of shadow mirroring light. The Silmarils were forged to preserve the beauty of a world that would pass. The ring was forged to bind and preserve power, even as the world changed. Both were wrought by the hands of the mighty, Fëanor by flame of spirit, Sauron by craft and cruelty, but their legacies could not be more different. The Silmarils wounded the unworthy. The ring clung to them. The Silmarils were irrevocably hallowed, a gift of light drawn from the trees and consecrated by Vardar. The One Ring was a mockery, a tool meant not to preserve creation but to control it. Yet both called forth from their bearers the same test. Would they surrender their will or assert it? The tale of the ring ends in mercy. Frodo fails, as do most who come near the ring, but he is saved by the very pity he once showed to Gollum. That mercy, so quiet, so unfashionable in a world of swords and thrones, is what unravels the last thread of Sauron's dominion. And what is mercy, if not a memory of the music? A harmony deeper than the ring's call to power. Meanwhile, the Silmarils linger. They do not call to men or elves to wield them anew. They do not return, their time is past. But their light remains. As Eärendil's star shines in the sky long after his voyage, so too does the moral of the Silmarils linger. True light is not possessed, it is beheld. And perhaps that is why, at the end of all things, Frodo and Sam do not look to the ring for guidance. They look to the stars. It was not the might of men, nor the wisdom of the wise, nor the craft of elves that saved Middle-earth. It was a light older than all these. A light passed on through hands that did not seek to own it. Through Galadriel's file, through Frodo's courage, through Sam's love. A light that first burned in Aman, captured in the 3 Silmarils. A light that refused to be extinguished by all the dark of Arda. So did the Silmarils secretly influence the fate of the One Ring? Not as weapons, not as relics, but as memory, as destiny, as song. For in Tolkien's world, nothing is forgotten that was once truly beautiful. And in the end, the light of the Silmarils did not rise against the ring with war or wrath, but with remembrance. And in remembering, the world was redeemed. Thank you, fellow traveler, for joining this long road through ages past. If this tale stirred your heart or sparked a thought, let the fire not go out. Share your insights, and let us ponder these mysteries together. Naelin Siluva Liena, may a star shine upon your path. Until next we meet under the boughs of Lorien or the towers of Valinor, fare you well.